Mm.
Hey guys, welcome. You are back on the Talkwoods, and this evening we are discussing an unusual Sunday vibe. We're discussing the power of sound, and today I am joined by these two fabulous people, both of which are quite relatively new in my life. Jonathan, you may have seen the other day, who I did an in-depth interview with on my other channel about messages from the other side. I'll let Jonathan tell you what he does, and also I was YouTube stalking Elaine. Who is absolutely incredible in terms of sound and working with vibroacoustics and what it can do for you, and obviously the true power of how we can use sound as medicine, which is tonight's subject mainly. So before we do go into this, I just want to say that everything we discuss tonight is all from personal experience. It's all from what we believe can happen. We're not saying everything can be cured. If there's something that you want to go down with a different path, that's entirely up to you. But we're here about, to talk about possibilities. We're here to talk about what may or may not work for you, and we're here to give you an alternative perspective. But we do thing that we talk about this evening, you take with your own logic and your own magic and your own understanding. Speak to your own practitioners first and GPs before you make any moves. But I highly recommend these two, which is why I'm here with them today. So first of all, we will jump straight into Jonathan. Jonathan, I met via Mark Devlin, who I did a podcast with. Mark is a really good guy, and he did a fabulous podcast with Jonathan. And I thought, I want a bit of that. And he doesn't live too far away from me. So gladly he said yes. And you're back with us tonight, Jonathan. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Nat, and thanks once again for inviting me. To come along and do a bit of talking about things. I really do appreciate it, and I know that from last when I've lost track of time. Was it last Wednesday? I can't remember.
I think it was, yeah, Tuesday or something like that.
Tuesday, yeah, and
Yeah.
no, but both Anne and myself are so taken up with what you're doing, and and you yourself, because you're great at this. It's a gift. I think that's the easiest way to say. So it's a privilege to be here, basically, and also to meet Elaine as well, who I'm going to learn a few hints and tips from, because I'm quite new to this, but it's still a big part of my life, So
Yeah, I love that. And we're all here to learn. And that's one of the most important things to mention, is that nobody knows everything. If you can, make sure you have space left in your mind to learn new things, you will get on just fine. And we're definitely all going to learn a lot from Elaine tonight. Again, YouTube stalking, which is what I spend most of my life doing. But yeah, YouTube stalking Elaine left me feeling super excited and very happy and really clear about what the message was and what the power of sound can do. Yes. So much so, I booked my mum in to have sessions with Elaine, who is now undergoing some of Elaine's work, which Elaine will explain a little bit more. But Elaine, how are you this evening? Thank you for coming on.
I'm feeling absolutely fabulous tonight. Yeah, really good. Nice to see the sunshine again, even though we've had snow in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, feeling very good.
Is it snowing quite a lot down where you are today?
No, just a sprinkle, but beautiful.
It is indeed. So we basically touched base when I reached out. I think the first time I came across you, a couple of other people actually from some of my other shows that I've done, I said I had sciatica on my back, and someone reached out and was like, "Oh, Nat, you need to check out Elaine. She'd be really good for you." And I was thinking, "Oh, I'll have a look at that later." And then the same afternoon, somebody else was like, "Nat, I saw your video and you had sciatica. You need to message Elaine." So there was this kind of, when something happens, and I thought, right, I'm on a little magic trip here. So I went and watched one of your videos. I think it was New Horizons or something like that. I've forgotten the name of it.
That was up north.
There you go.
Near Blackpool.
That's it, yeah. So I thought I'll give it a swirl, and I watched it with my parents, and we were all like, "Oh, this is interesting." So again, stalked you. I'm really good at this, and luckily you said yes. So I'm very happy that you're with us this evening. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I think we'll start with you, Elaine, actually. In terms of sound and its possibilities and its capabilities, a lot of people out there, some may know, some might be on a spiritual path, some might understand the true power of sound. You may have had a sound healing event. You may have gone on some kind of exploration with sound. You may have just danced or raved somewhere and really realized the power of music and how it can make you move and move your emotions. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. It's older than that. The history of sound is something we're exploring on this channel, and you have a really cool way of explaining it. So I'm kind of chucking it to you to let everyone know what you do.
Okay. Well, the basic premise that we all know that is everything is frequency. Everything solid, everything you see, right down to a molecular level and beyond. The energy that you use for healing, the energy that you use for clairvoyance, it's all frequency. We are like radio receivers. So, and we process stuff all the time. You can liken the brain to a computer, really, where we process stuff, we process emotions, but they're recorded in the brain and recorded onto the energy, which is the actual consciousness, as frequency. And frequency is both a particle and a wave. So it is what it is, but it also contains information, which is why when you read somebody's clairvoyant energy, you pick up the information in the frequency, which gives you a picture, which allows you to see what you can see. And within the sound work that I do, I discovered this. I've been working at it for 30 years. And way back in the beginning, I used to be at the National Federation of Spiritual Healers. I did energy work. I did all kinds of stuff. And as I said to you earlier, I had a dream. And I don't remember dreams very often, but this one was crystal. And I knew that sound was the medicine of the future. And it took me 2 years of thinking, well, maybe I can play the piano, or maybe I can make cassette tapes with music on it. I don't know. I was busy. And then it took somebody from the other side of the world who found me. I won't go into the story because it's a beautiful one, but a long one. And I went to visit her, and she had this videotape, and she said, oh, I know you're interested in sound. Take a look. And that was when I saw it. And I was so knocked out. I thought, God, this is either a big load of rubbish, or it's the next best thing since sliced bread. So I went to America and I learned, and when I got there, I could see with my own eyes. One of the things that impressed me most was watching a man who came in on double crutches, could barely walk. He'd been in a boiler explosion. And the woman I was working with put the sound on, and within half an hour, he was running up and down the corridor. It was spectacular. Now, not everybody has spectacular results with this, but let me get on to what the principle of it is. When I said to you, your brain records everything, it equally feeds back out everything. So you can tell how someone is by the tone of their voice. We all know that. Pick up the phone, you think, this doesn't feel right, or you don't feel right, or you sound ill, because the tone that comes out has changed. And I've done research in Germany at the Halsted Institute, and I've realized that every note that comes out of your mouth, every tone that comes out of your mouth registers as a brainwave spike. You have to have particular equipment to measure it, but I know that when you put on the sound that I use, it shows as a big spike in the brain waves. So your brain is creating that sound for itself. Now that's the basic principle. Now there's so much to tell you, but the root of the work I do is basically emotions, right? I help people with anything across the board. Doesn't matter if they got bingly bongly syndrome, or their hair is falling out, or their left toe is hurting, or they're suicidal. Doesn't matter what. It all comes down to basic balance. And I've looked at gongs and bowls and all those wonderful things. They are wonderful things for helping people to relax. But this methodology that I use goes in and helps you to reprogram the things that are out of balance. And we all know about our inner child and things that we've learned from the past, our patterning. And to really, really shift it. Some people are too ill to shift things. So they can't tone because they're not well enough. So they need a something to help them change things. And this is the beauty of where this comes in. And everybody has a basic sound pattern linked very much with the dreaded word astrology. I know I've talked in front of many neurosurgeons and doctors, and as soon as you mention astrology, everybody turns off. But I'm sorry, but it's there. You can't deny it.
It's definitely there. And this is why they say very quickly, just to cut in, they always say that normal people and millionaires don't use astrology, but billionaires do.
Yes, exactly.
So I just added that bit. Carry on.
Exactly. Because it's all about, in this life, it's all about knowing yourself. Knowing why you are angry or why you are upset or why you have a pain in your hip. And is it coming from inside you? Is it coming from the person you live with? And when I say coming from, is it the tone of their voice that dominates you enough to have to compensate by changing your patterns? How many people have you met who change when their partner is with them and then they don't feel so good? Something goes wrong or they get sick or, I mean, I'm skirting around the edges of all kinds of things because this is a science, to be truthful, but it goes way beyond science. It goes into quantum and all sorts of stuff. And understanding it, if you came to one of my, say, a workshop, I try and explain it as simply as possible. Because lots of people just don't understand about the tone of your voice, how your voice goes right up there when you get all happy, back up to the child octave. And when you're depressed, it sinks right down. Or, I don't know, I don't feel so good today. So it's all about, it's like a big circle of cause and effect. And when you're stuck in it, the only thing you can do is put a spoke in it. Now, for you, it might be giving somebody a gong bath or something like that, or giving them something that makes them feel hopeful. But for me, I deal with what I've always called the sick end of the stick, with people who've tried everything and don't know where else to go. And people with, so say, incurable diseases. And while I do not profess in any way, shape or form to cure people, I have had some spectacular results. Some people respond very quickly. Other people, it takes time. And it's all about analyzing the voice and looking at how the voice is out of balance. And in many of the other alternative medicines like homeopathy and reflexology and all the other ologies there are, it's all about bringing balance back. And, you can translate sound into numbers, obviously, frequency has numbers. So you can also translate it into light and color, and you can translate it into musical tones. So we use an octave to see where.
It's literally cosmic octave, yeah. Planets, tones, and colors.
That's right, yeah.
What I'm leaning on.
See this, but this also affects body chemistry. So, for example, I've just had a very successful program working with. Am I allowed to drop names?
You can say whatever you want.
Well, there's a lady who runs a very, very special clinic in London to help people become pregnant through their pregnancy and so on and so forth. She's a doctor, and I have provided her with equipment with sounds on for people who go overdue and cannot go into labor. And so that they can go into labor without having chemical inserted into their arm. And the premise is that you can stimulate certain chemicals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it works really, really well. And you can also find out with someone who's, say, got a syndrome, you can find the chemistry behind it and stimulate that as well. And the same with people with muscles or broken bones, or, so there's a whole level of chemistry and biology that goes with it. Once you progress through the learning. But the basic concept of balance is universal, really. And just imagine how it's like I've treated many people with dementia. And you think that's, you can't do anything about, oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. We know about good nutrition, fatty acids, and all the other good things that there are for coconut oil, good things for dementia. But there's also chemicals like GABA and what's the other one? Acetylcholine, that are in the body that need boosting. And I've had amazing, I don't know how far I can say what I've done on here, but I have.
I'd love you to, because I know when we spoke, I'd love it if you could just give us a couple of, there's some background noise on anything else.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about Derek, who he's passed away now. So, and his wife wrote to me handwritten letters. So I don't need to prove anything because I know. And he'd been diagnosed with clinical dementia, had it for 8 years, following a gallbladder operation. And during the gallbladder operation, they had repaired an aneurysm. So it was a big deal. And in my experience, people who have older people who have operations and things like that, it's a shock to the system. And lots of times, if you don't keep an eye on it, they start to lose their memory and they start to decline just a little bit, because it is being operated on is a shock. And it also so happened that his own set of frequencies matched a very prime set of chemicals. So this man was brought into me, he was carried in to see me, placed in the chair. He was basically dribbling, couldn't speak, and his wife was desperate. In fact, I'd just done an interview on Radio Bristol, and she called me after that. And he was very unresponsive, but she managed to just get him to say A, B, C with a bit of coaching. So I got some sort of a voice print, and then I worked simply on chemistry, what the problem was, what his own personal pattern was, and what I could see from the small print that I got. So I put the sounds on. Of course, I put him on my couch. Well, they put him on my couch because he was very heavy. It got to the point where she was going to have to put him in a home because she couldn't lift him. She couldn't get him out of bed. He couldn't speak. And one of the things that happens to you when you're listening to sound on my sound bed is that you can start to tingle. Your body is responding. You get all kinds of things. Emotional things can come up. You can get tingling on the nose, on the head, on the legs, on the arms, on the top lip, anywhere. Everybody's different. No two people are the same. And I've seen thousands of people. Anyway, I put the sounds on and we're talking, and her son, who was a strapping great 6-foot-odd bloke, and his wife were there because they'd carried him in. And all of a sudden, he apparently was asleep. All of a sudden, he started to scratch his leg. And I thought, oh, he's feeling something. Then he started to scratch his top lip. And we were talking, and all of a sudden, he sat up. And he swung his legs over the side of the couch. And he didn't have a watch on, but he looked at his arm. And he said, don't you think we should go home? It's time to take the dog out. And that was the first sentence he's spoken in 2 years. Wow. And she wrote me back a letter. And her son stayed with them for 4 days because he was like mouth open following his father. His father started to walk, talk, sing, whistle. By the end of the week, he could use a knife and fork and within a fortnight, he could get in the shower on his own.
Wow.
Now, that was, that's spectacular. That doesn't happen all the time, but I can make huge improvements in anyone who has cognitive dysfunction of any kind.
Yeah.
And that also it applies to right across the board, really, because I see, without any shadow of a doubt whatsoever, I see this sound being used now, laser sound, and there's a clinic in London that's doing inoperable brain tumors, lasering them out with sound. There's sound being developed all over the world for health. You can get your teeth done with sound. You get your eyes done with lasers. Laser is also frequency. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. And it is this medicine of the future. It really is, in all its forms. From just feeling depressed and having a wonderful gong bath and some healing and feeling beautiful, to coming in with a genetic issue. And I don't know if you've listened to Bruce Lipton and his opinions on genetics. Yeah. I absolutely believe 100% you do not have to have anything. Mm. The only reason you get it is if you follow familial patterns, local patterns, habits, attitudes. Mm. And this is why there are so many people who say, oh, I feel like the black sheep of the family. I don't do what they all do. That's because you're the one soul that's born into that family to make a difference.
Mm. That right there is I mean, that explains the entire island of Ibiza, who will be watching this afterwards. That island is full. We're full of the black sheeps of the family and the psychedelic sheeps of the family, and that is so powerful, because I also know that the way I am with my family, I love them very much. I am nothing like anyone in my family, but I'm the one that triggers the hell out of everyone.
You're the ones that stretch.
Just by my sheer existence of being here. So before you carry on, I wanted to, the reason I asked Jonathan to come on this show as well today is because I'm new into sound, although I am sound, and people are like, oh, you must be an expert. I'm like, I'm not. I'm going on my learning journey as I build the business, which is what I love to do, and I love to explore it. Jonathan, you are way more into sound than I am. I've had one of your sound sessions, which was amazing. I would like you to give your kind of opinion based on your version of what you do, and obviously hearing what Elaine's talking around, and just your thoughts basically, and what your feelings are around that.
Yeah. Well, number one, I aspire to do what Elaine's doing, by the way. And what an amazing journey in 30 years you had. And, that must just be incredible. My journey started just a few years ago. And I know we had a chat before we came on live, and it was this kind of intuitive dream thing. So it must be something to do with dreams, Elaine, that that kind
of upstairs it does it. My life has been guided upstairs.
It's wonderful. And I think for me the journey started when I realized that as part of my spiritual pathway, that sound basically is everything. It's just the basis of everything. Sound and light are two of the things that are the basis of, let's call it, the whole of creation, really. And I'm a very strong believer that love is the cement that holds it all together. And I'm one of these people that I'm not a kind of gullible person. I can be sometimes, but I like to see proof in many things, and I like to see that things do actually work. And
so do I.
I learned Reiki to only at level 2. Reiki, my wife keeps badgering me to go to master level, but I saw. Sorry, am I back on?
Yeah, you're back on. It's just cutting in and out slightly, but I think it's coming.
Sorry about that, folks. We've been having trouble with the internet. I'm talking about Reiki and my introduction to Reiki firstly. And when I started to see the benefits of Reiki and actually Reiki working for people, I thought, yeah, there's got to be something in this. You know, this is kind of appealing to my, you know, I need proof kind of side of me. I love science. I never got into it in a big way, but I do like to listen to all the stuff that's going on now. And Elaine, it sounds like you're very much, you know, I would say at the forefront of that by the sounds of it. The scientific approach, and thankfully through quantum physics as well, that yes. Everything that, you know, and is it derogatory? I'll call myself a tinfoil hat wearer because that's what some people will call me. Yeah, that, you know, quantum physics is now backing us all up, and it's like wonderful, you know, and it's this wonderful journey now that we're looking at the whole of creation, whether you believe in that or not. I'm not bothered really, but it's like when you believe or understand that the sound is in every single cell in our body, the whole thing works on sound. And Elaine, as you mentioned, the words, you know, the tones, and you know, reading amazing stories about the Tibetan monks that could levitate things by using their horns and all this kind of stuff, and that really fired my imagination up about the whole sound thing. And I am very much an intuitive healer, so I love it when people like yourself, Elaine, you've got this knowledge, and it's amazing because you're the kind of person that could stand up in an auditorium of people and convince somebody that sound works, yeah. And whereas me, I'm very intuitive, and you know, we've talked about being receivers. Human beings, we are these transmitters and receivers of the universe. And you talked about the astrology thing as well, and you know what, astrology, well, let's put it this way: if the Mayans and the ancient Egyptians and ancient civilizations really kind of base their lives around the stars and the movements of the stars, then who is anybody? And then the Mayans have proven themselves to be probably the greatest mathematicians on the planet. Who are we to disprove that or diss them for that, you know? Because what they did, their legacy, took us right up to 2012 and beyond. And, you know, and of course, the ancient, you know, the shamanic healers across the planet, all using sound, you know, the didgeridoo. We see this is what, if I just might take you off on a little journey, I've had some amazing meditations, and one of the other things that really kind of connected with me was a meditation that I was taken on. It was the blackness of space. There was nothing but the blackness of space, and literally there was nothing. In the beginning, you know, there was nothing. There was the word, and they showed me this sound, and the sound was very similar. And I'm a big believer now that the sound of the didgeridoo, the Tibetan horns, that tone of those instruments is the tone of the sound of creation. And that really fired up my imagination. And I'm thinking, wow, because, you know, it's almost like it's innate that you know these things already. It's just that we've forgotten them, you know. And it's like somebody switched on a little switch inside me now that said, right, this is your sound switch now. This is going to kind of tap you into to what sound's all about, and they certainly did that. And that's when the dream came to me, and I sat up bolt right in bed and said to my wife, and I said, look, I've got to do sound healing. So I'm very much on my early part of the journey, but even what I've seen so far over the last few years has been incredible. You know, like with my meditations, I put it out there. The thing is, Elaine, I don't know what it's like down where you live, but up north we're a bit tight, you know, with our money. And
a little bit, Jonathan.
Getting people to pay for things like sound healing, because it's like, oh, what's all that then, you know?
Yes. To
actually get people to pay for a treatment is a different story. But that's not a big issue. But what really surprised me was that I put an advert out through our centre to do a group sound healing meditation. And I based a lot of my healings around drone sounds.
Yes.
Because that's that sound of creation again, the sound of the drone, you know.
Yes.
And I put it out, and within 2 days it had sold out, and I was actually turning people away, you know. And I'm saying to Anne, I'm saying, oh my God, I'm turning people, because I was feeling really guilty because I was turning people away. And then people came, and then they're all going out, and they're totally spaced out, and they're just, and then we've had to sit with some people sometimes. The experience is profound for some people. Yes. And honestly, can you tell I'm a bit passionate about it?
Well, that's what we all need, is passion, because it's so worth following, you know. It's like, wake up.
Exactly. And like you say now, Elaine, I mean, God, I love Star Trek. I love science. Like I said, I love science fiction. And I always say that science fiction is actually science fact, you know. And you look at these amazing things like Star Trek when they're in the sick bay and stuff, and they're using these instruments like lasers, and I'm sure some of it will be based around sound. And as you say, Elaine, this is the healing of the future.
Yeah, but you know, the Russians were using scalar devices for their astronauts back in whenever it was they sent them up, all frequency based.
Yeah.
Do you know what I wanted to just before you go into it, Len, 'cause I know you've probably got a lot of things to say back to what Jonathan's just been saying, but for anybody that's just joined us and for anybody that is thinking about sound and being like, still not quite there, I want to just explain something very simply in the fact that there's two big things that we're dealing with on this planet at the moment. One's physical, which is what we see, the physical feeling, the physical, world around us, or the illusion of the physical world around us. And then there's the area called the metaphysical, which is everything that you can't see. And the metaphysical is just like when you tune into the BBC Radio 1, you're listening into BBC Radio 1 and you've got the DJs and you've got the music and it's all very powerful. It's great. But if you go to BBC Radio 2, it exists at the very same time. You're just not tuned into it because you're tuned into BBC Radio 1. And this is what happens with radio waves, is you can tune into different frequencies all the time, and there's always something within those frequencies, but you may be tuned into one and not really believing that there's the other. And the area that Elaine's going into, and also Jonathan and a few other people, there is more out there than we were ever told. And what we are doing now is coming into an understanding and an inner standing that actually what we feel to be true is true, and we are waiting for things to turn up in our lives that actually make us go, oh, okay, now I get it, because we know it, we just don't logically fully understand it yet. And what we're doing with these with these shows and with other things that I'm bringing on and other people are doing in the world is drawing in all these people who have had experiences in their life that they know and hold to be true and to be factual, and they've really done their homework and want to share this with you. Now, the difference of whether this works for you or not is literally an amount of whether you believe it or not. If you don't believe it, no one can help you, and we're not here to try and convince you. But if you do feel something inside of you and you're thinking, I want to try a sound healing, or I want to know more, like Miguel, who's one of my business partners, who's actually just said, I want to hear more about Elaine's sound bed on the comments. And, there's an interest. There's a genuine interest. And when you've got that interest, that's enough for you to be opened up and for healing to take place. And it's not that Jonathan is a healer, or I'm a healer, or Elaine's a healer, or anybody's. What it's called is a co-creative healing space. Now, some people get really offended if someone calls themselves a healer. And they say, oh, how dare you? That's so egotistical of you. You can't be the healer. I'm the one that's healing. What we're actually doing is we're healing together. And Elaine or Jonathan may open up a space for you to be able to heal in, and you do the internal work. So the external is being done by whatever it is they bring in whatever modality, and then you yourself attune to that, and the healing can take place. So I wanted to be very descriptive around that, because you may still kind of not be there, but I felt intuitively just to explain that in a little bit more detail. So that aside, and I'll shut up because it's not my interview anymore, it's these two. So that aside, I want to go into, Elaine, what you obviously any comments that you had back from what Jonathan was saying, but also to tap into your sound bed. There's a huge fascination on the planet at the moment around med beds, which some people may have not have heard of. If you have and you'd like to just dip your toe into that, I'd like you to go as deep onto that as possible. And by all means, I'm not stuck on time today. Time doesn't really exist, and we have nothing else to do because it's lockdown. So if you want to crack on and we keep going past the hour, then we will be here.
Well, with regards to sound beds, obviously I can't use it at the moment because nobody can come and see me. I see people online. So, but it's part and parcel of generally what I do, and also part of the classes too, because every student needs to experience the full-blown thing. Now, this bed is nothing special. I built it myself 30 years ago, and it's basically a box, and the top shape is actually, I modeled it on a sun lounger. So it's nice and comfortable. It's open at the top with slats, and all that is inside is a big bass subwoofer, because the frequencies I use are way down in the very lowest end, as low as you can go to make it audible. In fact, you can hear 1 hertz, but it's just like 1 hertz is just like somebody tapping. It's not a musical sound. And people very often think that everything's got to be musical, and it's not. I work in the brainwave spectrum, and I know that when I give you a sound, it'll register in your brainwaves as being the dominant sound. But in that amazing space between beta waves and delta waves, where you have theta and alpha and all the other things, this is where we store stuff. This is where we learn stuff. And that you see lots of people out there doing accelerated learning, with the binaural beats and all the rest of it. But I work in my sound to within 1/100th of a hertz. Absolutely specific. You couldn't get more specific than that at the low end of the brainwave range. And if you put two sounds together, say you put 25 and 29 hertz together, you make your brain, the predominant sound is 4 hertz. So if I've discovered that your inner child is storing a traumatic event around that area, I can identify it and I can bring it up. And the premise is that not that you go through all hell breaks loose and although that does happen sometimes for some people, but it becomes, when you listen and listen and listen, it becomes like a story that initially I could tell you a story and we could all start crying and thinking, oh my God, that's so terrible. Oh, and we'd all be crying. And then if I tell you again and again and again and again, and I tell you 20 times, by the 20th time, you've got no emotion attached to that story at all. You're thinking, oh, I'm fed up with that now. And this is the premise of what I do, is I find the traumas and bring them to the surface in a nice way. It can come out as dreams or sensations or memories or all that sort of stuff. And then by repetition, you actually dissolve the emotional body response. It's the chemistry. You always know if somebody is still hanging on to something, when you talk to them about it, they'll start to cry. If they don't start to cry, then it's maybe not, maybe they're getting over it. But if they, like somebody who's lost someone they love, a child or a husband or whatever, and it's allowing them, the sound will allow them to remember that, all the good stuff and everything else, but without it being debilitating grief. Do you understand? Yeah. And that is the cause. That is the root cause, full stop, of why people get sick, because they hang on to anger and grief and trauma and things. I mean, I can't give any names here, but I had a young girl brought to me once. She was about 20, going on 21. And when she arrived, her mother brought her parents brought her, because up until, I don't know, a year previous, she'd been outgoing, she'd gone to college, all the rest of it. And all of a sudden, she started to retreat. And it got so bad that she would sit in her bedroom, hunched up all day long, and not speak to anybody, only her mother. She'd speak to her mother, and that was it. When she arrived, she was a very pretty girl. She was wearing thick makeup, disguise. She was wearing a wig, disguise. She had lovely hair. She was wearing a headscarf. She was trying to hide herself, and she didn't know why. Anyway, I tried everything with her. And I knew, the mother had told me, that when she was 2, she had witnessed something very, very serious to do with her mother. Her mother was almost murdered in front of her. She had no memory of it. But the memory, like a balloon, when you squeeze it and it pops out here and then it pops out there, the memory was coming up to be, and it was making her afraid all the time. And I tried all the sounds. No, don't like it. She wouldn't even come in the room with me on her own. And then I thought, I'm going to take this right up high into the vocal range of a child. And as soon as I started hitting the higher notes, she got ecstatic and almost uncontrollable. So anyway, she said, "Oh, I want it higher. I love that sound. So anyway, I gave her some sounds. Her mother took her home, and the following day, her mother rang me up. She said, "Oh my God, she doesn't want to listen to the sound anymore." I said, "Why not?" She said, "Last night," she said, she had the worst nightmare ever, and the whole lot came out. She remembered. And I said, no, that's good. If she keeps listening, all the trauma that was held in her body will go. Mm-hmm. And she'll remember it, but she won't be traumatized. Within a month, she was back at college, right as rain.
Yeah.
And things like that happen. It's well, like, going on to what you were talking about energy and that. The applications for sound are limitless. Limitless. I'm very much into quantum physics and geometry. It's all part light geometry. And, if you look at the principle that Bruce Lipton talks about, how we control our genes by the way we respond to our environment and other people. And can you not see what that means? If we can be perfectly balanced human beings, we need never be sick again. Preventative medicine, and that's, and my basic bottom line is about empowering people to do it for themselves, to do the work, to say, I'll be with you. If this comes up or that comes up, I'm with you. It's okay. Because now is the time. The time. The perfect opportunity.
I have something to ask you. Sorry, Jonathan, I want to cut into you as well in a second. But I just wanted to ask you, from a personal perspective, what you're saying, I'm all in. Obviously, I've got, I Am Sound, I've got the radio, I've had the dreams, I got the dream myself. I sat up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, I need to get the domain name, soundisahealer.com. And it was just so like, get it. And I got it. Didn't know why. And I know that there's other reasons coming, but it's all started with a personal point. And I think everyone's journey does when it comes to sound. But for somebody that's never really understood sound and they don't really get it and they might be listening to this, I wanted to put this to you. My auntie, I won't mention her name, but my auntie has been diagnosed 5 years ago with childhood leukemia, and she's 80 something. And this is I wanted to see what you may think of this, because obviously it's childhood leukemia, but she's getting it at that age. Would you say that this is a program or something that she's going through from that age that hasn't yet come up, and now is the time? Is like a delayed response in a body? Yeah,
I would say that it may have been inherent, but something that's happening to her now has triggered it.
Right.
It could be situation, it could be a fear of growing old, or it could be anything. Mm-hmm. It could be the fact that she may have to move and she doesn't want to. or the lockdown, being very lonely and, all that sort of thing. Lots and lots of older people have been very affected mentally by all of this. And it's, I would say, when you get something that doesn't belong, i.e. it doesn't belong in an 80-year-old's, then that's when you say, there was the tendency there, and now something's triggered it. So if something has triggered it, then you can rebalance her and change it. Yeah.
Because I feel like with it, when you mentioned the young girl, then with the age, and there's things that we don't remember, there's things that we can't tune into because we are just totally unaware. And I think a lot of people do that when they say, oh, that's got nothing to do with me. No, that's not my case. We very often just say that because it doesn't necessarily resonate, but we could actually be hiding from our greatest healer. We could actually be hiding from, the thing that we need the most. The other thing that I think so many people, that I did want to get in on this interview, and somebody has actually just made a comment as well, is the thoughts on tinnitus. I think is such an important subject because from my perspective, I used to be a DJ. I'm in the music industry. A lot of DJs and a lot of musicians struggle with tinnitus. It's not just for musicians, but a lot of them do. And a lot of them are getting it coming up because at the moment what we're in the silent period. So we had all the noise, we had all the raves, we had all the parties. We're now in the silence. We can't rave. We can't do what we want. We can't have these events. And in this quiet time, a lot of artists are getting tinnitus. And there must be an emotional, from what I'm thinking, an emotional reason for this. So I just wanted to touch on that also as well before I jump to Jonathan with another question.
Well, from personal experience, I've experienced tinnitus in my left ear for some time. And it can be various things. It all links back to emotion, but it can also couple up with bacteria. And I know that if I allow my body to get too acid, because acid and alkaline balance in the body is huge, it's really important. If I get too acid, then the bacteria start to multiply and the noise in my ear goes louder and louder and louder. When I'm alkaline, it disappears. So that's one thing. In the work that I do, I look at every area. I look at diet, I look at lifestyle, I look at stress, I look at acid alkaline balance, I look at vocal balance, because within that whole pattern is the answer. And sometimes people go deaf just because they don't want to hear what's being told to them. And have you ever seen, a wonderful book, which I actually give to my students, is, Louise Hay came out with the first one, Heal Your Body.
You can heal your life,
But In a Seagull, The Secret Language of Your Body, wonderful book.
Yeah.
Very accurate, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to write that one down for my mum.
And there's also, I can't remember his name now, but there is a chap who specializes in tinnitus, and that's using various different frequencies, all above 1,000 hertz. The only thing I would say about that, and I'm sorry I've lost his name at the moment, but because he set up this whole thing a long time ago, is that the methodology there. I've been to his place, and they measure your hearing and where you've got hearing loss and where you haven't got hearing loss. And you know what I found? I looked at the chart and I thought, my God, that looks exactly like my voice. Because what you can't hear, you can't speak. So if your voice changes, it's because there's a part of it, and it correlates very much with your hearing. But he uses very lengthy sessions with big earphones, and he treats a lot of children and all that for deafness and stuff like that. And I think there's a quicker way, personally. But tinnitus is very, very personal. You got to find out, because lots of people, DJs, wear big ear muffy things. You're also keeping heat in your ear, which doesn't, bacteria and stuff like that.
Sure.
And there is a thing that's linked to the sinuses that can cause inside the ear low-level bacteria.
Yeah, true. Thank you for that, for going into both of those areas. I appreciate it. We do have other questions, which one of them we're going to ask after this, but I'm going to go into Jonathan for a second. Jonathan, thoughts on your feelings around what Elaine's saying, the references that, you know, I know that you like dove straight into sound healing, and it's pretty much all that's been around for you for the last few years, and you're really going in. And I'd just love to get, again, because there's going to be a lot of people when we send this out, and it's going to be going to all the different colleges we've partnered with and so on, and there's a lot of people out there that are in the sound healing world like yourself that want to go deeper as well, and I just feel that it's just a valid perspective for somebody who's a little bit further down than I am in terms of the lineup and what you might be getting from your clients, and how you think Elaine's work might be able to benefit you as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Thank you, Elaine. It's fascinating, you know, what you're actually saying. And the tinnitus thing actually came to me this last 12 months. And I spent lockdown, by the way, producing meditation music, drone music. Yeah. It's one thing that part of running a busy wellbeing centre. It's one of my passions is music, but I could never do it. So when lockdown came, it was like, whoa, this is it. You know, I've been blessed from heaven, really. I've got a chance to produce the music now. Yes. And where do I start, really? It's trying to put it all.
I know, it's such a big subject.
I know, I felt like you had things to say as well. I'm like, I'm going to shut up. I'm just going to let you speak.
One thing that really brought it home to me was, you know, we all exist on a frequency, as Elaine's already stated. We all exist on these frequencies, but not only just one frequency, but many. It's a harmonic. We exist in many harmonics of frequencies. And this came to me. I'm a big fan of Kraftwerk, by the way. You know, the German electronic geniuses of music, as I call them. And there's one particular track called Neon Lights, and in that song, there is a tone, a frequency, a musical note, and that note just completely resonates with me. And I'm thinking, whoa, I've got to look more into this, you know. And what I'm hoping to do, the sad thing is that lockdown came, this whole thing came, and I was just literally stepping into new areas. But now, you know, because we're so restricted as to what we can actually do in terms of therapy, it's kind of put things a little bit on hold for me. But Elaine, you've probably been there already, but I really want to work with people on that kind of that tone and that harmonic within each one of us, really, because we already, and you know, Jonathan Goldman's famous kind of formula is you know, frequency plus intention equals healing, and that power of thought to me as well is very important. And I think you touched on it, Elaine, saying that, you know, we already have this ability. Every single one of us has the ability, yes, if you like, to heal ourselves, you know. Yes. And what we are, and sorry if I took people down the rabbit hole a bit too soon, Nat. You grounded me very well there, by the way. I've got to say that. But you know, it's kind of we're all healers, but we are the facilitators of healing, if we call ourselves that, if you like, or facilitators to help someone to regain balance and you know, because human beings are conduits. You know, we are conduits of energy, and between ourselves in groups or individually, we can help to heal each other or to make each other well again. So for me, it's very much a case of, you know, I got sold on that through many different ways, and it all kind of, it was like a coming together of lots of different modalities to convince me that this stuff actually works. And then I actually started putting, I have this, what I call a magic wand. It's a crystal tuning fork, by the way. And oh my God, I love my crystal tuning fork.
Yeah, it is pretty as well. I've seen it.
It's an object of beauty, but wow, is it powerful in terms of its ability to be able to focus the healing, to focus the energy.
Do you know what frequency it is?
Yes, I was trying to look for that. I think it's on D sharp, Elaine, but I'm not sure on that one. It could be on D sharp. And my dad suffers with carpal tunnel.
Yes.
And he one evening he came to our centre. There was an event on, and he really suffers with a carpal tunnel about just down that side of his hand there.
Yeah.
And literally for about 10 minutes, I just put the tip of the tuning fork onto his hand.
Yeah.
And he actually rang me the day after, and he says, whatever you did last night, he says, it's actually worked,
Yeah.
And honestly, it stopped him from doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so that very just small amount of energy, of frequency that went into the palm of his hand actually made a huge difference.
Yes.
And that for me was, again, a bit of a revelation moment, because, we talk about DNA as well. And when we talk about energy and DNA and the fact that, we can, dare I say it, can I say it, but repair DNA, we're looking at actually repairing DNA. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You're not going to get me shadow banned on YouTube. They're already trying it, apparently, so don't worry.
You can always cut me off now if you need to do, yeah. But
I would never do that. I'd rather just let you flow.
If we talk about creation, and I'm sorry for anybody who doesn't believe in creation, but let's just call it the construct. We'll call it whatever we want, yeah. That sound is intrinsic in everything. In that. And our DNA is also it's a receiver and transmitter. And again, science is thankfully finding all this kind of stuff out and proving it. That this is what we are. And they're now looking at biology in a quantum sense as well, and that's coming up with some amazing things too. But I just want to say that when we, how can I put it? When we accept that we are beings of sound, yeah, and that we can manipulate everything about us at cellular level,
yes,
then we are then on the road to grasping what we've been looking for all these years.
Because in truth, we're doing it already, but we're doing it unconsciously.
Absolutely.
And then getting the wrong results.
Yes.
When we think, when we get angry about stuff, we get stressed about stuff, and we create it. We create the problem. And this is a whole journey on waking up, recognizing who you are and what you're capable of, and then being able to manage yourself from a very beautiful place. But we all need help to start off with. It's like trying to fix a car. If you don't know anything about mechanics, somebody needs to come along and show you what to do. And there was a point earlier on that you said, and I was going to say something about it, but it's gone now. I've got goldfish memory, and it's like
there'll be a frequency for that, Elaine. I don't know if you've done it.
No, it's called being in the moment. You see, I forget what was.
That's all right. If it comes back to you, just jump in on it. I wanted to. There's three things that have popped up in the chat, and Elaine, I believe that you and Jonathan, you may have heard of these as well, but. First things first, I have had the pleasure of working in the past with a gentleman called Dan Winter. Have you ever heard of Dan Winter?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I used to sell his devices that used sacred geometry to structure water. They're quite interesting. He's got something called the Therify device. And it uses largely frequencies and a number of other little magic things. Have you ever heard of that or had any experience with that is one of the questions from the audience.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Dan Winter used to work very closely with a colleague of mine in Spain, Marisol Gonzalez. But I know of him, we bumped into each other. It's like Jonathan and all the others. Yeah. We bumped into on the path. But no, I don't know what a Therify is.
Okay,
Not
I'm gonna
necessarily
send you
describe
some.
it to me, and then
Yeah.
I might.
I wouldn't do it justice. I'd be blagging it basically if I was trying to explain it to you in full. But I will send you the information because I think it'd be fascinating for you.
Yeah.
Also, same person asked really interesting question about solfeggio frequencies and what you feel about solfeggio frequencies, and yeah, just your opinion.
Okay, I'm going to probably be very controversial here.
Go for it.
Initially, I will say that I haven't studied them a lot. I have looked at them, and in my experience, and I'll take just one thing. In the solfeggio, it's claimed that XYZ frequency is love, or enlightenment or whatever. And I would ask you the question, how can that be?
Mm-hmm.
Because love, in any individual has many levels. There's the love of a mother for a child. There's a passionate love. There's a deep friendship love. There's unconditional love. There's many, many levels to love. And everyone, it's like fear, okay? You might say, oh, fear is this frequency. No, it isn't. It isn't. Because you might be afraid of spiders. So you might see a spider and shriek in the note of E. I'm not afraid of spiders. So when they label things in a generic way, like this is love, this is compassion, it actually, it doesn't make sense to me, because I look at it and I think, okay, that's the note of A, it's here, that's the pitch, it's in that octave, it's in the child octave, whatever. And I would really like to talk to whoever names these things and ask them, how did they come to that? Did they come to that through spiritual guidance? Mm-hmm. I could be wrong. I'm totally open on this. But if you've ever played a solfeggio scale, it's not very, it's like the lambdoma scale. It doesn't sound terribly good. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound harmonious all the way through. Yeah. And I'm not saying that there's anything against it at all, because as I said, I've only gone into it not in great depth, just looked on the surface. So I would like open debate on that.
Well, we're going to have an open debate on that because I have the perfect person for you. So challenge accepted. Right. Also, the same on binaural beats. What's your opinion on binaural beats?
Well, binaural beats are usually stereo. Okay, so that's 1 2 1 2 1 2, and that's fine if you're not deaf, because you've got to take into consideration people's hearing ability. But binaural beats are good. They're great. I've worked with a lot of stuff from the Monroe Institute using binaural beats. Yeah. Okay, and if you listen into their music, what they're playing is 100 hertz and 101 hertz in the background with a 1 hertz difference. So a 1 hertz wave is a delta wave, and that is going to make you extremely relaxed. And it's very good for relaxation and going deeply into stuff and meditation and all that stuff. Nothing wrong with that at all, because when your brain will be picking up that 1 hertz wave, and that's fine. How I work is with single sounds and double sounds, like two sounds together, like binaural, but I mix them so you get the mixed sound in each ear. So even if you're deaf in one ear, it doesn't make any difference. You're still getting the sound. And you also have to understand the concept of how do people receive things. And we receive things primarily through the left side of the brain, a nanosecond before it goes to the right. People who are extremely creative and left-handed and possibly deaf as well might be right brain dominant. It's very rare, but sometimes they are, in which case everything gets reversed. So if you have a frequency I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole here with brainwaves, but there is a whole science to the thing I originally started talking about. Lost my track there.
I can't bring you back because I was so engrossed in the rabbit hole as well. I'm a crap host today because I'm like, oh, where's she going?
Yes, well, binaural beats, yes. They're extremely therapeutic, and when you play any two sounds together, you get the stereo effect, and you do get all the harmonics in the middle note, and it is fabulous. It really is fabulous. So they're incredibly useful, and I've noticed that there are little people popping up out on the net now who have obviously done similar training to me, and they're offering sound therapy for particular diseases such as diabetes or this, and I've been investigating that because I think they're using chemistry. I think they're using some very clever computations of sound, but it always needs to be investigated, because you cannot say that. Say, for example, there was one person I know that put out a CD with the note of A sharp on it, and said, "Oh, this is for calming you down," and yada yada yada. Well, that might work for you or you. It might not work for me, though, because my sound pattern is different. I might already have massively too much A sharp, and you give me more A sharp and it's going to drive me nuts. And that was another thing I was going to say. That sound you heard that you said went through you? Well, if you took a voice print like I can do, you can see which notes you're high in and which notes you're low in, and it's the low notes. If you were going to give somebody a gong bass, you could then identify which notes they need.
Absolutely, yeah.
Lots of my students actually, they've come from a gong and a Tibetan bowl background with sound, and they're finding out all of this stuff on top and realizing that they can do both. They can integrate both because one assists with the other. And again, when you're treating somebody with a very difficult health problem, sometimes they need that extra oomph at one end, as well as the gongs and bowls, because that's very relaxing. And sometimes there's one of my students actually is just putting up a website where he introduces, after they've done the sound with this, he introduces drumming, because some people find it very difficult to let their emotions out. And so with the drumming, you all know what it's like if you really get going on drums and you lose yourself. You can let, especially if you've got that sound playing as well, you can really let go. And I think one of the best therapeutic tools ever is crying. Where you can really get to a stage where you've screamed your head and you cry and you sob and you let it all out. I had a chap, 6'2", 60 odd years old, with a bad lower back pain, traumatic childhood. He came to me with a bad back, and I gave him the sounds to do with his childhood and I won't go into it. And he came back a fortnight later and he said, well, it's good. While I got the sound on, it's working. But when I turn it off, it stops working. So that's generally a sign of the right sounds, but the wrong octave, because we store everything like a big cake in layers in different octaves, which is why sometimes high-pitched sounds can really knock you over and think, wow, that's amazing, or low ones. And I put the sounds up in the octaves, and this man was not used to feeling his emotions. So he said, my eyes are running. I said, oh, are they? It's like his eyes were pouring with tears. He said, they're running. I said, well, I think that might be. I said, anyway. Then he suddenly started to sob, and he sobbed for half an hour. And when I asked him what was he crying about, he didn't know. But when he got off the couch, his back pain was gone completely. And that is what happens. You see, even, you know, when you talked about your father with the carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
Well, what birth sign is your father?
Gemini.
Oh,
Right.
same as me.
Yeah, that's the note of D. Okay, so carpal tunnel is usually between C sharp and D, and the balance of G and G sharp.
Mm.
But even if you only had a D sharp tuning fork, you still interrupted the pattern that was holding that with something else.
Yeah.
You know, and this is why you can sometimes get sound that will work for a little bit, and then it seems to get worse again. What my aim is to get in there and change it at the root, so that it doesn't come back. You know, So, but any interference is better than none. Sorry. Yes, gone off on one there.
No. Listen, you can this is a radio show. You can go off on one as much as you like. This is the whole point. And we're going to have you back anyway. But I have one more message from a guy. Well, I don't actually know what your name is, so I'm just going to call it out as you are on YouTube. The Death Beats. I'm not quite sure what that means. But anyway, it says, very interesting, but I would love to know how we experience 1 hertz wave, as humans can only hear down to 20 hertz, and the best speakers only get to around 30 to 33 hertz. So, Elaine, I believe that's from when you were talking. Somebody else thinks it's because you were discussing the difference between the 2 tones, but please to that if you can.
Yes, well, I have a very, very good amplified bass subwoofer. And I can produce a 14 hertz wave that's giving me, if you put a microphone, I've done loads of tests on this. If you put a microphone close to the 14 hertz wave, you'll pick up the harmonics of it first, but it is in there. And if you could play a 1 hertz wave, but it won't sound like anything except somebody just tapping like that once a second, okay? But the way it's said that we don't hear anything underneath 20 hertz. Well, elephants do, and we don't so much hear it as feel it. When there's a rumble or an earthquake or something like that, you feel it in your body, okay? Because the ears aren't equipped. And how do you give a 1 hertz wave to a person? You make the difference like Monroe does. He gives 100 hertz carrier and puts it together with 101. Then your brain will make it. Your brain grabs it like gold dust, you know. So I test people. The lowest I play on my speaker is 14 hertz, but the wave comes out, but you can't always hear the lowest things. Now, another thing I do too, and this is, I hope this doesn't cause a rush on the market, but for the last 30 years, I have been using a particular headset out there that has titanium in the diaphragms. Now, titanium is a very flexible metal, and it's very, very good at picking up ultra low frequencies. And I always go for the lowest, you know. You can get things like microphones that will go pick up anything up to like from 15 hertz. You got to look for it, but it's out there.
Is this what my mum's just got with the stuff that you told her to order one with the titanium in? Did you send her a link? Yes. They're the ones. Okay. Yeah, I have some of those.
Yes. Yeah, they're very good. Actually, and they've been going for an awfully long time because they are good. They give fabulous bass response.
And they were inexpensive, right? It was something like 20 quid or something. Like,
yeah, they used to be $14 on Radio Shack. You know, it was mad.
Yeah, crazy. Okay, so before we tidy this one up, I do want to say that we are having you back. I'm not letting you go anywhere. And obviously, I think I'll bring you back with Jonathan as well. And there's loads of other areas I want to tap into that. I've got a great person for us to debate with the solfeggio frequencies. I'd love to go more into the Monroe Institute heart math and how that relates to what you're doing as well. And also kinesiology as well, I think is a really interesting subject around this. So there are other things, but there was one final question. I do apologize. I completely forgot to ask it, and I saw it come up, and then I scrolled on by. And it basically says, has anyone here thought about the frequency healing through the Quran? Has anybody worked with that before? And apparently a lot of people in Canada are using it, and it's quite popular with people who suffer with mental health. Have you heard anything around that?
Through the what? The Quran?
Through the Quran, yeah. So around healing through the Quran in terms of frequencies, listening to the Quran. No? Okay.
I don't know what that is. Are you not talking about
I believe there's I don't know if this is the same person who sent me something the other day, and it was the Quran. It was an audio from YouTube as a background, and apparently it has quite a calming effect. But he was just wondering, I think, if there was any particular reason for that. And going into, I think that probably would be a really good question for when I have Jonathan Goldman back as well, because he's into all of that other spiritual text and looking into other sounds within that.
I need to spell that so that I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's put Quraan, so the Quran. So we'll go into that and see. But I want to say thank you so much, because I've loved this conversation, and I think everyone here has learned stuff, and I really want to come back with you guys. I'm preempting. I don't know what you're both doing next Sunday night. I was meant to have Sound and Language, but my guest hasn't confirmed. So next Sunday, I'm kind of thinking you two could come back for round 2. If you're up for it. And for anybody that wants to reach out to these two, I have underneath the YouTube, I've been efficient. I've done my admin, and you will find their details underneath. You'll find their YouTube channels and also their websites, because I was on the ball today. And please do reach out. We're going to follow on with quite a lot of this stuff. And what my aim to do is, I am no expert in this field. I'm going on my own musical journey, learning about singing more and bringing that back into my life, because it's something I stopped through trauma. I do use my voice. I do meditations for people, and they make people cry, which I don't intend to do that, and I don't know how I'm doing that, but they always end up crying. So I'm trying to learn why, and obviously it's a good thing, I guess, but it's also something that makes me feel like, oh, am I doing something wrong? But there's a real interest that I've got, and I want to go on this learning journey with you guys. So if there's anything you want to know, anything you want to hear, anything you want to go deeper into, please email me, write a comment in, let me know, because these are all subject areas I can learn with you, and that I can pull in all of these amazing people like Jonathan and Elaine, and also the rest of the sound healers and experts that I'm getting on board. Both of you, have you got anything to add before we go?
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add as a finale, because I just thought about that chap that was asking about very low frequencies. And I said, it's like with the very low frequencies, you can generate them, but you feel them. And this goes into the realm of weaponry, because very low frequencies at high volume are extremely dangerous. And this was what Hitler tried to do this in the war, building bunkers with speakers as big as the side of a house, and ended up killing everybody in the bunker, And this is what the Navy also uses, which is why, sadly, lots and lots of dolphins and whales are ending up washed up with their brains exploded and bleeding and the rest of it. So, and that's a whole other realm of weaponry, which, is not, I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but it's like, don't mess about with very low sound at high volume, because that's the sort of thing that, when you've been at a rave and there's a huge bass speaker and you're standing there and your whole body is moving, it's actually vibrating your organs and everything in not necessarily a very good way. Not a good way, because you can feel really stunned afterwards. It's like walking,
Yeah, that same person just said that a 14 hertz subwoofer is going to be dangerous for your neighbors.
Well, it does pass through concrete, and I do have to be very discreet.
Yeah.
Get I'm very aware.
And yourself, Jonathan, is there anything you'd like to add today? And can you join us next week as well?
Oh, well, I'll certainly have a look at the diary. And I'd love to be able to do and say yes to that. I just want to say thank you to Elaine, because I need to book myself on one of your workshops, by the way, after this chat. It's so wonderful to speak to someone who, you have all these ideas and all these concepts and things. And then, like yourself, Elaine, you've been putting those into practice. And one thing I would just say to everybody is find that note within yourself. If you got a keyboard, or you can download them on your phone these days, can't you? Find that note that you resonate. Mine's D, definitely D. And everybody's got that, so find it, and then we can start working on that. We can start working on the harmonics and everything.
Yeah, your voice is the best tool. Very often if I'm driving a long way and I've got a headache, I just find any note and I just start overtoning in the car. Just to break up if I've got a headache. It's good. That's the way to go. Your voice is your best tool.
Hum it. I think Jonathan Goldman talked about it, didn't he? Humming.
He did indeed. Yeah, the power of humming. One thing which I am going to go into more with him, he actually did say that he was been working with some scientists, and they found out the other day that the original word that we all think was was actually the way that they described and how they wrote the word for humming, because what they were actually doing was humming, not omming. And he's gone deep into that, and it's fascinating. So we're going to get him back on to talk about that at some point. But I want to thank you guys so much. I've loved that you make it so easy for me to learn and for everybody else to ask questions as well, and just being super honest and open, which is what we need. I would love to keep you forever, but I know that you've got stuff to do. If you guys can just stay on for a second, everyone else at home, thank you so much for joining us. Please do subscribe, share it. I am here at 7 o'clock every night. I'm going toe for toe with Boris. I will be here through the lockdown. I have nothing else to do. So we might as well learn and have fun together. And we will see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, I have a show. It does actually say, "Oh my God, I am pregnant," which is actually the title of the show. It does not mean I am pregnant, because I've already had people ask me that. That would be impossible, thanks to Boris as well. So yes, I'll be tomorrow. Oh my God, I am pregnant. And then the day after, I have at 7 p.m. I have a short interview. It won't be a live, but I have a short interview with a guy that I pre-recorded around the very interesting instrument of the theremin, which is something fascinating.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that blew my mind. So if you don't know what that is, tune in on Tuesday night. You will find out, and you'll be as mind blown as I was. So guys, thank you very much for everyone at home. We will see you tomorrow, and you guys just stay there. Bye for now.